The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
This country is in serious trouble. This is not hyperbole. This is not fear-mongering. This is not me exaggerating or being bombastic. The United States of America is in serious trouble for many reasons that we talk about on this show on a regular basis. But now we have come to an inflection point where I really have to pause and ask the people who are not engaged in these conversations on a regular basis, those of you who get the joy of being able to simply go to work and come home and to check your investments and check your bank account and everything is fine. Those of you who are not targeted by police shootings, those of you who are not targeted by the right wing in this country, those of you who are not targeted for being gay or lesbian, transgender, or simply queer, those of you who are not targeted because of your religion, because you're Jewish or because you're Muslim, those of you who are not targeted because you're poor and you live in poor communities that give police officers freedom to simply do whatever they want to in your community because they know you don't have the money to afford an attorney. Those of you who have the kind of lifestyle that most people would simply enjoy, the ability to exist without a threat hanging over your head, be it a threat of gun violence from the very persistent and very real police state that has occupied Black communities since time immemorial, a threat from hate and bigotry because of your religion or your sexuality. You just have a peaceful lifestyle and you're able to tune out the reality of what's going on the ground. This is not to indict you. Most of us would love to live in that space, the ability to just simply go to work, make a living, come home and be able to mind your business and have your life be your life and be a decision between your family, your loved one, your partner, your spouse, your doctor, and not have to be concerned about Supreme Court decisions that could irrevocably change your life. This is not to indict you. Most of us would love that life. But the reality of it is, down here on the ground level, this is not what the majority of Americans experience. And as if that wasn't enough, because most Americans, most human beings I have found, most human beings are so resilient that we can fight and work and live and sometimes even thrive through the worst conditions. But that's not enough for a faction of this country who has everything. We are dealing with the spoiled sons of the empire, the men children who are so angry that they don't have it all, or they're so idolatrous that they want to be the richest person on the planet, and so they worship the richest person on the planet. The reality of it is that we are suffering underneath the whims of white supremacists. White male Christian supremacy in this country is having a field day with the lives of millions of Americans. And where that is not hitting somebody directly, this system itself is so uniquely designed to crush and grind us to a pulp. And we are seeing it with the lives of people who are arrested for simple traffic stops or arrested for simple things, ended up in police systems that haven't even taken them to trial yet, Rikers. And they are losing their lives inside of these prison systems and these jail systems because the system is so perfectly designed to just crush us with no ramifications. I could go into story by story, example by example, but I'm finding it more important to just simply ask the question, have y'all been paying attention? No, really, like I really want to pause and ask, not my regular listeners, but whoever gets a hold of this, whether you be a regular listener or not, do you really understand the score? Because we're moving into a stage where Simply being left alone is not an option for the majority of Americans because this system and the spoiled sons of this system are insisting on crushing us even further. Do you want specific examples? Well, you look at the mass shootings and they are a direct extension. If you read the manifestos of each and every one of these mass shooters, if you look at their profiles, if you look at their belief systems, you will find out that these mass shootings are not just happening because we have access to an obscene amount of weapons in this country. They're happening because these people who have economic wealth, who have political power, who have social reach beyond anything that we can imagine, they are not happy enough having it all. They need, they desire, and they want to crush anyone who is in their way, anyone who is not like them, and anyone that they are told to hate by their leaders. That's just one part of the problem. The other part of the problem is every single method of communication, mass communication that we had access to try to change this momentum has been successfully seized by the very people who want to crush us. Not just Twitter. I mean, Twitter is the latest episode of this. Elon Musk is the latest example of this. But we have long since lived in a system that not only controls our day-to-day life through the police state, through the economic system, through employers, through our inability to get health care. You know, it's hard to fight for something when you're sick and you can't even go see a doctor. It's not just those problems. But all through this country's history, it is the ability of the powerful to control the media. And let me be very clear. It is white male Christians who control this thing. Spare me all of the talk about Jews running everything. If you actually look at who is running these systems, who's running the media, who's controlling our banking systems, they are predominantly white supremacists. And that shouldn't surprise you considering how this country was built. It really blows me away for people who understand the nature and the scope of white supremacy because we experienced it firsthand, black folks, to all of a sudden turn around and blame it on Jewish people when the actual literal facts of who runs these systems are the same white supremacists who trafficked our bodies across the Atlantic Ocean. There is no ambiguity there. There's no question about it. The threat that we are facing comes from white Christian men who are not satisfied with all the economic power in this country. They're not satisfied with all the political power in this country. They're not satisfied with all of the means of communication in this country because they have to absolutely have someone to blame for them to feel justified in their hatred. They must have a scapegoat because their political system does not work without a scapegoat. And we are at the stage where I have to ask the people who simply get to live a comfortable, normal life for whatever reason, do you see what's going on? And do you realize that we are coming to a decision point when these fascist militias that are actively training right now across our country, they are training to be death squads. They are training to be their own personal Gestapo, and they are backed up by the police state. Every single video you see of a fascist organization, whether it be straight out neo-Nazis or whether it be the Proud Boys who like to disguise themselves as something other than Nazis, every video that you watch of these people, the cops are standing behind them or in front of them defending them. The real question that you have to ask yourself is when it comes time to decide what your comfort is worth, who are you willing to allow to be thrown into the grinder for the sake of your peace, for the sake of your comfort, for the sake of you simply being able to live a quote unquote normal life? Because underneath it all, the bodies are piling up, whether it be bodies piling up from mass shootings, whether it be the bodies that continue to pile up because of the police state, or whether it be because some spoiled white boys who are not satisfied with their lot in life because they're not the richest or because they can't get every woman they like, or they can't get every woman they want. And so they create an entire philosophy around the control and subjugation of women. And because, hey, I don't know, maybe it's not a threat to you. Maybe you don't have to encounter that anymore. Maybe you are so removed from the reality of what's going on in the lives of women, Black people, the LGBTQ community, and poor people that all of this just seems like foreign to you. The question is when you are literally faced with the decision of standing up and fighting on behalf of someone that's not you, fighting on behalf of someone that's not in your immediate family, are you going to stand up and fight for them, or are you going to err on the side of your comfort? What are you willing to do to maintain your comfortable lifestyle? What are you willing to do to maintain that sense of peace that you have that requires that you ignore everything else that's going on? It's the same question we should ask all Americans. What are we willing to ignore in order to maintain the peace that we think we have inside of the United States that comes at the expense of all of the global South? Because here we are literally at this point where every day now, every day, there's a killing that takes place or a mass shooting that takes place. And the core root of it is not simply the fact that we have an abundant amount of guns, an inordinate amount of guns in this country. It's rooted in the fact that there is a faction of white people who have been radicalized by their spoiled, petulant egos. And this is not to absolve the Black folks or the Hispanic folk or the Jewish and Muslim people who side with the fascism that is growing and festering like a malignant cancer. No, this doesn't excuse them. But the face of the violence, the people who can get away with literal murder, it's the face of white male supremacy in this country, white male Christian supremacy, to be sure. Of course, their enablers are just as guilty and culpable in this, the Black people who align with white supremacy for whatever reason. We can break it down, but we go catch an older episode where I already broke it down. The women who side with this white male supremacy because, well, they live in the comfort that the spoils of white supremacy bring them. They're women who are more than happy to go back to the days of where they can do anything but be naked and pregnant in the kitchen. And that's literally what you have some white women promoting on social media right now today because they enjoy the spoils of white supremacy. There's always going to be people who are complicit with their oppressors because of what they get from the oppressors. So they are not innocent in this. But when we talk about the literal violence, the people who are training these death squads that are preparing across the country, video after video have shown these militias that are training to kill us. They are white men. So the question has to be asked at this turning point in the country. It's not only what side are you on, because in theory, I assume that everyone who listens to this podcast or might get a hand on this podcast, you probably are a decent person. You probably hate bigotry. You probably hate the racism and the xenophobia and the Islamophobia. You probably hate all of those things. But do you hate it enough to actually take a stand against it when the threat becomes imminent? Because I'm here to tell you the threat is imminent. It is here. It is alive. It is well. It is well funded. It is organized, and it is in every single state across this union, almost in every single city. And you know how they're getting away with it now? They're getting away with it now because they have found a group that they are free to kill, and they are free to talk about killing them, and they are free to promote even more killings of them. And that is the LGBTQ community, specifically the trans community. And this is why I am so adamant about standing up for them, because if we do not stand up for them, we have empowered, not only because of their lives. I mean, we should stand up for them because they're humans. But the fallacy is this: if you think you're safe because you're not gay, if you think you're safe because you're not trans, if you think you're safe because of whatever reason, allowing these fascists to target and kill this group because you're not in it, or because you don't approve of it, or because it doesn't go along with your biblical doctrine, it gives these fascists exactly the leeway they need to go and kill the next group. Because if you honestly think that they're going to stop at targeting gay people and trans people, then you haven't been paying attention to history. The violence never stops at the group that you're not in. It always comes to your door, inevitably. The violence of the police state was never going to be limited to the Black community. This is one thing that I have been screaming on this show since I started the show. They perfected the police state in the Black community. The reason they are able to get away with what they're able to get away with is because y'all let them do it to Black folks for so long. The reason you're able to see cops get away with just killing white folks now without any charges, shooting up a kid who was eating McDonald's, shot him 10 times. The reason they can get away with these things, even if they get arrested, they get a year in jail, they get suspended, they get transferred to another department. Their lives continue because y'all allowed it to go on in the Black community for so long. They have mastered the art of getting away with murder. How do you get away with murder? Well, be a police officer that's patrolling a Black community. Oh, but now, how do you get away with murder? Simply be a police officer and say that that white person resisted. Ask Daniel Shaver. I'm sorry, you can't, because he's dead. He's dead from being on his hands and knees, begging a police officer to please don't kill me, trying to do everything he could to comply with that police officer, but that officer killed him anyway. A white man. How does he get away with it? Because he got away with it for so long doing it in the Black community. And I'm here to tell you that if you're okay with what is happening and the targeting and the full-scale, full-blown propaganda that is being pushed out to encourage the murder of the LGBTQ community in this country, it's only a matter of time before they turn those guns on everyone who isn't a perfectly pristine white male Christian or perfectly subservient to white male Christian supremacy. Well, Ben, why are you on this today? Why are you just coming straight for everyone and telling everyone to wake up? Well, it's because the shift in this country, the switch between playing political games with our lives to outright declaring that we should be targeted, or in this case, the LGBTQ community should be targeted after the mass shooting, that switch has been hit. From Ben Shapiro on the Daily Wire to Matt Walsh on the Daily Wire to Tim Pool to Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson had a guest on his show last night that made it clear that these types of killings are going to continue if they don't stop the evil of gender affirming care. And because so many people in this country either don't understand, don't want to understand, don't agree with, don't care for, and downright disapprove of transitioning. The question now has to be asked, do you disagree with it so much that you're going to sit by and allow them to be killed? Because that's where we are. Do you disagree with transgender people so much that you are perfectly okay with militias targeting and killing them? Are you okay with them being killed? Because this is literally what is being advocated for by the likes of Tucker Carlson, Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, the entire conservative movement. They have found the one group that they can get away with killing and advocating for their murder because people don't approve of it. People don't understand of it. People are afraid of it. People are terrified of what if their child becomes trans? What if their child? And I want to be sure it never stops there, because the conversation across social media has expanded to not just the trans community, but the entire gay community, the LGBTQ community. They're literally advocates by the thousands who are saying that the mass shooter from the Q nightclub was doing God's work because the people in there were gay. So I have to ask the question, are you going to sit by and watch them kill gay people because you disagree with them? Your Bible teaches you X, Y, and Z. Are you okay with them being killed simply because of what and who they are? Because that's a whole different level. Like to disapprove of something, that's your business, but you can also mind your business. There's a lot in your life that I'm sure I would disapprove of, and there's some stuff that I do that you would disapprove of. Does that mean that we have the right to control each other's lives and to disenfranchise us and to marginalize us and to discriminate against us? And it certainly does not mean that we have the right to kill one another because I don't like the fact that you do X, Y, and Z. But that's where we are. And I always try to personalize it and say, like, do you have anybody gay in your family? Are you going to sit by and allow these fascists to kill them? Or are you only going to allow them to kill people who are gay that are not in your family? Where's the line? Where do you draw the line? Are gay people such a threat to your entire being that you're willing to sit back and watch as these militias go around the country killing them? Because the foolhardy thing that you're not realizing is that they're gearing up to kill you too. Or they're gearing up to take your body for their own pleasure. Don't think that this is not 100% rooted in the sexual desires of emotionally stunted men who, because they couldn't get the women that they wanted in high school, because they couldn't get the women that they wanted in college, and because they were rejected by women, they are so belligerent in their thinking that they're now willing to pick up guns and kill people. So if you think you're safe because you are a Christian, because you are a straight person, or because you are whatever, you are not. We have never been safe in this country. The only question is who has this country been able to get away with killing with impunity? The state, the empire, the machine, the institutions, the police force, they have always been able to get away with killing black people. Now they're getting away with killing white people. Congratulations. Y'all are starting to join the club. But you got a long way to go because your communities are not occupied by police forces like the black community. So you got a long way to go. But it shows you it never stays with the group it starts with. And so and it's so sad because I feel like this is something people should know based on everything that we've seen up until this point in this country. But because normalcy, and by normalcy, I mean just being able to go to work, being able to come home. You're able to keep up with your bills because you make a decent salary. You don't have to worry about getting in a food line because, that was never really your plight, or you pulled yourself up by your bootstraps, or whatever the case may be. You got a normal life. You're able to go home and play your games, your video games. You're able to go home and watch your reality TV shows. You're able to just exist, and it has not come to your door directly yet. That type of normalcy is something that people are willing to defend. But are they willing to defend it on behalf of someone else? Because if you're not, you'll quickly find that your normalcy is the next thing on the list to be attacked by these white male supremacists. I've had people say, well, Ben, I don't agree with the LGBTQ community because they're not really as marginalized as black people. You do realize that there's some gay black people, right? You do realize that you probably have some gay family members that are going to come to Thanksgiving. Are you okay with them being killed? Or are you just thinking about the people that are not related to you? You're okay with them being killed. And then I have other people say, well, Ben, they don't ever stand up for us. That's how I know. That's literally how I know that the person who says that, the people who say that, they have not been in the streets organizing. Because at every rally, every protest that I've been at where black people are fighting for black lives, I've seen the LGBTQ community out there fighting alongside us. So this is just somebody who's picked up a talking point that makes them feel good in standing down when it comes time to fight with people that you're not. It's so easy to stand down because you're not gay and to not fight for the gay community. And we are at the point now where we need to clarify who really is walking amongst us. Is it that you're just not willing to fight for the gay community, or are you okay with them being killed? The trans community. Are you okay with them being killed simply because they're trans? Are you okay with that? Because if you're okay with that, then I don't care what skin color you are not my brother. You are not my sister. You are a fool who is going to find themselves in league walking side by side with people who literally want to kill you next. It's all one coalition. It is all one coalition. And this is what I'm trying to get people to understand. I don't care what you believe, what you don't believe. I don't care what you are or what you are not. I don't care if you agree with abortions or you disagree with abortions. I don't care if you disagree with the LGBTQ. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, the people who you are fighting for your individual freedom, no matter what it is, you might just be fighting for women's rights and you don't really care about black folks. You do realize they're coming after you too. You might be a part of the LGBTQ community and literally don't care about black folks because you're only focused on your fight. You do see what they're doing to you, right? Right now. They've been doing it to black folks forever. And the people that are doing it to all of us in our individual silos, so long as they can keep us divided in our individual silos because of what we don't believe in, because of what we don't agree with, because of what we're afraid of, because we don't want our children to be this, we don't want our children to grow up and be that. Whatever it is that you are afraid of is exactly why they're able to keep us divided and kill us individually in our silos. It's nothing for these white supremacists to go and shoot up a mosque. They've done it. They'll do it again. It's nothing for them to go and shoot up a synagogue. They've done it. They will do it again. It's nothing for them to come into a black church and shoot us up. They've done it and they will do it again. And what do they all have in common? Their common bigotry towards everyone that's not a white Christian man or a woman who is subservient to them. White supremacists love that group because, you know, at the end of the day, they trying to get some themselves. At the end of the day, they are mad because they couldn't get enough in high school. At the end of the day, it's always about the proclivities of a man. You can't tell me that this whole earth is not struggling because of the sexual proclivities of men. Look at the churches. The Mormon church has a series of scandals. The Southern Baptist Church has a litany of scandals. The Catholic Church has been inundated since the beginning with the scandals of sexual abuse against women and children. So you absolutely know that they need co-conspirators who will stand by and watch them do it to other women, to children. And the fact that these groups, all of us individually in our individual buckets, in our individual silos, we have been individually fighting for our own justice. And at sundry times, our fights have crossed and we fought together to greater or lesser extent. But the fact that there was progress where black people were able to fight for ourselves and say enough's enough. The LGBTQ community was able to do that for themselves. The women have been fighting for themselves. The fact that all of us have made progress is literally a direct threat to the ego and the sexual desires and the finances of white Christian male supremacists. But the alliance that we're fighting against now, they're okay with you not being a Christian so long as you're willing to fall in line with Christian nationalism. They're okay if you're not a man, so long as you're willing to fall in line and be subservient to men. They're okay if you're not white, so long as you're willing to fall in line with the white male power structure in this country. And not even just in this country, it is a global movement. I don't know what to say other than they are literally pushing us to the point where we need to decide, are we going to fight for one another or are we going to allow them to destroy us individually? That's where I ended the show yesterday. That's where I'm going to end the show today. If we are not willing to fight with people, listen, you have the right to believe what you want to believe. Churches have the right to teach what they want to teach. The Constitution guarantees it. And that's the way it should be. Fine. But the question that we are faced with today is, are you willing to let other people die simply because you disagree with them? Are you willing to watch them be murdered because you don't believe in what they believe in? You serve a different God. Are you willing to let that person die? Are you willing to let Muslims be killed simply because you don't believe in Allah? Or are you so tired of the oppression that we have faced as black people? You're so tired of fighting that you're not willing to pick up and fight for somebody else while we fight for ourselves. At the end of the day, the easiest thing to do is to divide and conquer. especially when we're giving each other the side eye because we don't trust one another, especially when we don't agree with each other's decisions. We don't agree with their faith. We don't agree with their lack of faith. We don't agree with their sexuality. We don't agree with their identity. Or it's even easier to divide us amongst those of us who are comfortable because the threat has not reached our doorsteps versus those who are living in the threat every single day. Maybe I'm a fool. Maybe I'm the wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I am the idiot because I believe that every single marginalized group, every group that is suffering in this system, I don't care what you believe. I don't care who you love. I don't care how you identify. We must unite against the threat of white Christian male terrorism because they are not satisfied with just killing black people. They are not satisfied with just killing Muslims. They're not satisfied with just killing gay people. They're not satisfied with just killing trans people. They want it all. And if they don't kill us, they want us to be subservient to them. They do not want us to have an inch of power because they realize their supremacy was never supreme. Tomorrow's Thanksgiving. There will not be a podcast tomorrow, but I do believe I will be back on Friday. And if you are around on Friday, you should come to our patron party on Friday night. I do believe, and I will double check with DJ Exclusive, this Friday night should be a patron party. Patreon.com/the BPD show. Try to enjoy your holiday as much as chaos is going on around us. Can I, one last thing. These are the same people. I thought I was done. I'm not. Let's go a little bit further. These are the same people. When I said Thanksgiving, it reminded me yesterday of Dr. Anthony Fauci, who made the simple recommendation that you should get a COVID test before Thanksgiving, before going into the house with your loved ones. And would you believe that the reaction from the right, these white male Christian supremacists, was one of a full-blown meltdown attack, decrying him to be a criminal for suggesting that you should get tested before you go into someone else's house for Thanksgiving. These are the same people who have rewritten history as it pertains to COVID-19 in the middle of the pandemic, where we're still seeing hundreds of people die every single day. We have to be somewhere around 1.25 million dead, if not 1.5 million. They stopped counting. You realize they stopped putting out the official count. And where Dr. Fauci came out and said, go get tested, the reaction from the people who want to kill us was that he is now an enemy of the state. He's persona non grata because he had the nerve to tell the American people to go get tested and be concerned about someone else. If you want to know the full sociopathy of what we're dealing with, understand that this is where we are. This is where we've been throughout this entire pandemic. And yes, there are so many people of every race, of every belief system who actually sides on the side of these fascists who want us to go and not get tested, who don't believe in wearing masks, who don't believe in the vaccine. Ice Cube came out yesterday talking about the vaccine and how it was, whatever. The point is that fascism is going to be diverse. It's going to be religiously diverse. It's going to have representatives from every community. And part of the requirement has always been to ignore reality and to say 2 + 2 is 5. That was the party's greatest command. And right now they're saying in the middle of a pandemic where millions have died, they are requiring you to pretend as though nothing is happening, that the morgues aren't still being filled. Be safe out there and care about somebody else beyond yourself and beyond what you believe. I'll see you Friday.